right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. The weather, even though it's really warm out, we've got this really great cloud cover, so it's not as bad as it could have been. You know, these kinds of outdoor events, you're always like, what's it going to be like? Of course it's going to rain, all those sort of things. But we're really lucky that it seems quite beautiful out, and thank you all for joining us today at Salubria. For those who don't know, my name's Jennifer Hurst-Wender, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Executive Director for Historic Germanna. So whether you're a longtime supporter, a neighbor, a member of the Board of Supervisors, or somebody that's just here for the snacks, we're so glad that you're here with us today. So before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment to introduce to those of you who may only know Salubria to our broader organization, which is Historic Germanna. So Germanna was founded in 1956 by descendants of the original Germanna colonists. Historic Germanna's mission began with a focus on honoring and preserving their legacy. Over the decades, that mission has grown into something much larger, connecting people to the full spectrum of stories, landscapes, and communities that make up this region's rich and layered history. We're a nonprofit organization committed to preserving and sharing the history, cultural, and natural resources of the Germanna region. We steward historic sites, including Salubria and the Enchanted Castle Fort Germanna archaeology site, as well as 170 acres of Ziegan Forest, where visitors can explore almost 7 miles of trails and enjoy access to the newly opened Germanna Ford boat launch for canoeing, kayaking, and paddleboarding. Our work spans archaeology, genealogy, education, public history, land conservation, and whether it's teaching students about regional history through STEM and archaeology, preserving ancestral stories, hosting an annual conference, heritage trips to Germany, or protecting our irreplaceable cultural resources, we are here to ensure that the stories that shape us remain alive and accessible to everyone. And Salubria is a very special part of that mission. So before I go any further, I want to give a special shout out to our supervisor, Susan Guigino from Stevensburg. Susan has been a thoughtful advocate for this part of the county and a great supporter of Historic Germanna. So thank you, Susan, for being here today and for all that you do. Now, today, we're celebrating more than just a shiny new sign on Route 3. We're marking a milestone. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources does not take to updating their markers lightly. The process is very thorough. Every word on that sign had to be researched, confirmed, and documented. So the DHR is basically like the FBI of history, and we love that. We love them for that. So rest assured that the marker is accurate, at least of today, it's accurate. The text tells a remarkable story of Salubria that was built in 1757 for Reverend John Thompson and his wife, Butler Brain Spotswood, the widow of Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood. The house was likely constructed by both free and enslaved craftspeople and is one of the oldest surviving homes in Culpeper. People know it for its elegant brickwork, original paneling, and the terrace gardens that are behind you. It acquired the name Salubria, meaning healthful, by the 1830s. And with its dry basement and breezy hilltop location, the name fits. Salubria was part of the Battle of Brandy Station. It hosted Union troops through the winter of 1863 and 64. And Bud Hall, who will be speaking later on today, will tell you a lot more about that. And if you have additional questions and Bud happens to be busy, I'd like to point out that Shannon, Historic Germanna's education manager, knows more about the Civil War than almost anybody that I know except for Bud. In 1878, Salubria became the birthplace for Rear Admiral Cary Grayson, physician to President Woodrow Wilson. It's a place that has changed with the times and with the people who lived here. So just like our own homes, Salubria has been utilized in different ways throughout the centuries. So just like when the kids move out and their room becomes a guest room, a home gym, or in my case, a pottery studio. But here's the most exciting part. We're just beginning to publicly interpret Salubria. So this is kind of our before picture. And here you all are at the start of an entirely new chapter. Thanks to the semi-quincentennial grant from the Historic Preservation Fund administered by the National Park Service and decades of research, much of it from people in this audience, We're now transforming Salubria into a community resource, a place to explore, reflect, learn, and have some fun. So speaking of, in case you don't know, and on the back of your program, you can find a list of events that are going on. So you'll see that we have public days where we'll be open on Thursdays and Fridays from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We have architectural tours every Friday in May. There's art days, there's Salubria After Dark, and our biggest event of the year, which is on October 18th, which is our first Oktoberfest and History Fair. There'll be reenactors, demonstrators, food trucks, beer, cider, you name it, and it's free to the public thanks to donors and partners like Culpeper County. So mark your calendars, we want to see you there. On that note, we're proud to offer free programming with suggested donations because we believe that history should be available to everyone, not just those who can afford it. And we rely on those who can give to help us keep that promise. And we've made it easier than ever. So if you notice on the back of your program, there is a QR code that you can scan. And we've just updated our online donation platform to make it really easy. So the QR code is on the back of your program. And there's one at the registration desk. There may be one on the food table because, nothing says I love history like scanning a QR code while you're grabbing a macaroon. Try it out, and if you have suggestions, tell us. We love feedback, and as an organization, we are also developing an unexpected passion for QR codes. I also want to say that Historic Germanna is lucky to have the hardest working staff I know. They handle events, they research, they do grant writing, they do plant removal, they remove more wasps and ladybugs than you can ever imagine. But we can't do it alone. So we need you. We need you to tell your friends. We need you to come to our programs, and we need you to help spread the word. So if somebody that you know hasn't been here, bring them and scan the QR code. And if you're feeling generous, scan it twice. Salubria isn't just a building. It's a story, and its story is still being written, and we want you to be a part of it. So thank you for being here today, for celebrating with us, and for helping us make sure that this incredible place continues to stand proud for this community for generations to come. Now it's my genuine pleasure to hand the microphone off to Shannon Doherty, Historic Germanna's incredible education manager. Shannon not only researched, wrote, and meticulously footnoted every detail on the updated DHR sign, but she also cleared the way literally with a weed whacker in hand to make sure that we could gather here today without needing a machete to get to the sign. Her dedication and attention to detail and her willingness to tackle both history and honeysuckle are what brought this project to life. And Shannon, you're a force of nature, and we're so glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you all for being here. It's kind of surreal that this sign is done. This project started all the way back in September of 2023 when I had enough of looking at the broken stub of the sign that was there up until yesterday afternoon. And I was like, how do we fix it? And so thus became a long journey filled with a lot of helpful individuals along the way. Jen, I appreciate all of the kind words, but this was a joint effort. This was a team effort. And so I just have a few people I want to thank from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, Jennifer Liu, who's kind of the historic marker coordinator, and Matt Gottlieb, who helped with the fact checking and footnoting and the research. Kathy Ellis, who is not here today, a longtime Germanna friend. She has literally written a book on Salubria, a huge book on Salubria with sources and footnotes, and it's that research that served as the basis for a lot of my work with the sign. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but she is an invaluable resource, and myself and Historic Germanna are so grateful for her. I'm also grateful for the Historic Germanna staff. They were helpful in helping me revise the wording, as well as some more research and fact-checking, as well as thank you to Bud Hall for helping me with the Civil War section of the sign, helping me with the sources for that as well. It was definitely an eye-opening process working with the state. Jen said they fact-checked every single word. Every single word on there had to be supported by some sort of primary source to make sure we're telling the best possible story here. Jen gave kind of a good overview of the history, and I wish the sign could be like this big because there's so much I wanted to put on it, and this is what we ended up with. But If you want to know more about that story, again, Jen mentioned we'll be open to the public starting next Thursday and Friday, 10 to 2. I will probably be here most of the time if you want to come say hi and look around and learn more about this house's history, because our history is, telling it is so important now more than ever. It's places like this that allow us to come together like we have this afternoon, and reflect and think about the 200 plus years that have come before us. Almost 250 years our country is turning this year or next year. And places like this can facilitate conversations and community building. And I'm just so grateful that this sign is just the first step in this long process that Jen has kind of alluded to, of turning this space into a true community resource. And without going into a full ramble session here, I'm really, again, just so grateful that everybody's here. Again, it blows my mind that this is finally done and that there's a sign out there now, not just a stump of metal. But otherwise, again, thanks so much for coming. And it is my pleasure to introduce good friend and historian and preservationist Bud Hall to say a little bit about Salubria's role in the Civil War. Thank you.
If you'll indulge a little background, Jennifer made reference to the stewardship role that's so crucial, vital to core mission of Germanna and Salubria. I'd like to just emphasize that back in 1990, the Brandy Station Foundation, which at its core, spark-plugged, initiated the preservation effort of the Brandy Station battlefield. And the Association of the Preservation of Civil War Sites, today's American Battlefield Trust, decided that we needed a local organization, we, APCWS, today's American Battlefield Trust, to do the local work in Culpeper County. They had skin in the game. They were property owners. They were closer to the scene than we were. And so APCWS decided to create out of whole cloth the Brandy Station Foundation and paid its chartering fee of $1,500 in Culpeper, nonprofit, 501c3 preservation organization. So we decided, I was detailed by APCWS, the board, to be the point of contact with Brandy Station Foundation, and we decided we needed to have an opening reception to invite the public. And we asked Jeb Stuart IV, great-grandson of Jeb Stuart, the original, to come and join us, be on our board. And we had a number of other folks here that we invited to Salubria. So our first preservation meeting, the Brandy Station Foundation, which inaugurated the preservation effort to save the Brandy Station battlefield, was right here in the yard. And I've got some great photographs of all of us in our finery. And we had some notable celebrities here, Katie Couric, her husband, Jay Monahan, a number of other folks. So that core preservation effort started at Germanna, and I think it's so appropriate that Germanna and Salubria today continue, Salubria on behalf of Germanna, and Germanna itself continues that preservation stewardship, as evidenced by what you see around you. These things, it was not inevitable that this property be saved. People saved this property through their generosity, their commitment, dedication. People saved this property. And citizens, good American citizens, saved this property. And so it goes. And so we'll continue to support you, American Battlefield Trust. We citizens of Culpeper County will continue to support you. And I'm honored to be here to say a couple of words about the Civil War history, but would be remiss if I didn't discuss the important role Salubria holds in the annals of preservation history in Culpeper County, battlefield history, because the very first meeting was here. Very first meeting. So one often hears today real estate folks touting location, location, location. Well, that same principle, location, applies in a much more different and impactful way in military matters. Because if a structure rests alongside and fronts a significant transportation artery, whereupon troops, artillery, ammunition, and supplies can be easily shifted, then, by definition, that structure becomes militarily significant. And that structure then also necessarily becomes an unwilling witness to momentous military events. I give you Salubria. Now, the person that knows more of anybody in and around this county of old roads is in our audience today, and that's Ann Miller, who sits right back there. She knows more about old roads, and whatever I know about old roads comes from her. But right now, Salubria, as it is situated, sits a mile east of the oldest intersection in Culpeper County, which is the intersection of Kirtley's Rolling Road, called locally here York Road, Kirtley's Road, and the Old Carolina Road coming north-south. So the major north-south road in the Piedmont during colonial times was the Old Carolina Road. The major east-west road was this road that's out in front of the house. Coming from, now this is important, when you're coming from Fredericksburg in a coach or in a military brigade column, when you come from that direction, you cross Germanna Ford, you cross Ely's Ford, they both merge at the same place, at Shepherd's Grove, which is 5 miles east of here, Shepherd's Grove. That's where those two roads, crossing the Germanna, the lower fords, Germanna, Ely, they come together, Shepherd's Grove, and then those two roads merge into one and the same, Kirtley's Road, or Kirtley's Rolling Road, and that heads west towards the Blue Ridge Mountains. Thank you, Jennifer. And so that road becomes, obviously, military insignificant, because here we get into the heart of the matter. During the Civil War, there was no county in this country that was more impacted, more fought over, marched upon, contested about than Culpeper County. 8 military campaigns open here and close here. And Salubria, as it fronts this important road artery out front, was a witness to all of that. There's no home in this county. It witnessed as much military movement activity back and forth during the war in Culpeper County than the front yard of Salubria, the north side of Salubria. So as the war plays out, as the war starts, battles waged back and forth between the Rappahannock and the Rapidan River, 18 miles apart, at Kelly's Ford and at Raccoon Ford, 18 miles in between, back and forth. Up and down the Old Carolina Road, which is, as I say, a mile to the west of here. So in 62, battles back and forth between Cedar Mountain, Culpeper Courthouse, back and forth. 63, this is when it starts to get serious for Salubria, and in as much as its impact by the war. The largest cavalry battle in American history, the Battle of Brandy Station, the threshold opening of the Gettysburg Campaign, starts when Federal cavalry crosses the Rappahannock at two places 8 miles apart, Beverly's Ford, Kelly's Ford. Kelly's Ford column, 2,000 men, is coming in this direction. Now, I would ask you to think for a second that absent this ridge, which is just north of Salubria, across the road and just north, that absent that ridge, the Battle of Brandy Station might have had a far different impact. The Confederates knew that the only way they could stymie, block, stall a Federal attack was to hold that ridge. And that they did. With one regiment, the 2nd South Carolina Cavalry, got up on that ridge, and as all those Federal troopers came and approached the ridge, as they all approached the ridge, they saw Confederates up there, and guess what? Confederates were shooting down at them from atop that ridge. So during the war, this gap between Hasbro's Ridge and the lower ground on this side, Hasbro's Ridge actually extends from the north side of the ridge and onto this side. It just gets lower over here. But it's part of the same ridge. So the gap between those two was called the gap by soldiers. The gap or the slot. And VDOT had its way several years ago when they widened it to 4 lanes, made the gap a little bit less prominent. But that's VDOT. So, but the gap is there. The gap is there. And the Confederates held the gap. Well, the Federals attacked. And the Federals attacked in great numbers. And so the Confederates fell back through the yards of Salubria, both sides, casualties occurring, 4th Virginia Cavalry, 2nd South Carolina Cavalry. They're all occurring here as the Confederates are chased to the west of here. The Federals know that their objective is not to chase Confederates to the west, but their objective is to get to Brandy Station, 6 miles to the northwest. So the Federals veer around and they go in that direction. And at the end of the day, the Federals withdraw from a position that the Confederates held at Mountain Run, Norman's Mill, came back through here. But think for a second now. Those 2,000 men, if they weren't stymied, blocked by the troopers that were up on that ridge, the Battle of Brandy Station could have had a far more different outcome because these troopers would have aided their mates at Fleetwood Hill that came across from Beverly's Ford. So Salubria plays an important role in the largest cavalry battle of the Civil War, the opening phase of the Gettysburg Campaign. That's one significant thing that Shannon and I have talked about as she was crafting the text for the Sun. And the next thing that happens in a major way, if you're looking at the event in Culpeper County during the Civil War that impacted the county more than anything else and in a devastating manner, it was a winter encampment of the Army of the Potomac in 1863, 1864 for 5 months. An army of 120,000 men was camped in Culpeper County. This is the second military event that would impact Salubria. And as those soldiers camped here for 5 months, gathering their strength for the May campaign to come, the Overland campaign to come, Confederates were south of the Rapidan in Orange County. The Federal troops camped all around here. 20,000 soldiers, 20,000, count them. Second Corps of the Army of the Potomac camped right around here. One brigade at Stony Point, another brigade up here, another brigade at Shepherd's Grove. The 3rd Cavalry Division was in Stevensburg. George Custer, Judson Kilpatrick, they were in Culpeper. So Salubria was well known, and the brigade commander of these troops here, Henry Davies, used Salubria as his headquarters. Certain Federals refer to Salubria as the fort. They wrote letters home describing it as the fort. That's what it looked like to them, the fort. So this was the center of cavalry activities, cavalry camping activities during the winter of 63-64. Now, the next thing that happens, after the encampment is over, May of 1864, coming from Culpeper to initiate the Overland Campaign was the reconstituted Army of the Potomac. Coming from Culpeper was the 5th Corps. Governor K. Warren was its commander. 6th Corps from Farley, 20,000 soldiers coming from this direction. They marched right down this road, past Salubria, on their way to Germanna Ford, on their way to Ely's Ford. The cavalry had precipitated that movement by moving in that direction, moving towards the Rapidan River. The cavalry out front, infantry behind. Now, along comes trotting down that road, right in front of Salubria, is a man smoking a cigar with his cap pulled way down over his head, riding his horse Cincinnati, the commander of all United States armies, Ulysses S. Grant. He comes right down this road, and he marches past here. One would like to think he doffed his cap at Salubria as he passed. Now, you have to take these trees out of here. These trees weren't here. Some were around the house. But trees down towards the road, they weren't here. Why? Soldiers used the trees to build corduroy roads, to build their huts. When you look in Culpeper County today, you see all these trees. It looks wonderful. It looks wonderful. The trees, for the most part, were not here. I can show you pictures of Culpeper County in the winter of 63, 64, where you look at the landscape, it'd be hard to identify a tree anywhere. So, but around house parcels, and Salubria had it. So the Civil War leaves Salubria behind operationally, but the next thing that happens is 160 years ago, this weekend, today precisely. Today precisely. The Confederates have surrendered at Appomattox. Joe Johnston has surrendered his army south of here. So Sherman and his army, with four separate corps, 20,000 men each, start their movement towards the north. Now, why are they coming up here? They're going to join the Grand Review, which will be held for President Lincoln over 2 days in the city of Washington, late May 1865. So the 14th Corps, 20,000 strong, marches right down here, past here, on their way to the Grand Review, and that would be the last military phenomenon of the war in Culpeper County, and Salubria was a witness to that. So Salubria, an icon of history. It's in good hands. All of us who know Salubria and love it are just pleased and gratified that you folks are in charge of it, because in a way we love it as much as you do. And I thank you very much.
Okay, closing us out today is going to be Historic Germanna's president, Keith Hoffman. I actually have to say one thing about it. Has been an absolute joy to be a part of Historic Germanna, and one of the biggest reasons is because of the support of our president, Keith Hoffman. He has been the most wonderful board president I have ever encountered to work with. His support of our staff and of our ability to make the right decisions, and he backs us up 100% of the time. He leads us with a gentle guiding hand. We couldn't do it without you, Keith, so come on up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Historic Germanna Board of Trustees, thank you for being here today to celebrate this meaningful milestone for Salubria. We're deeply grateful to the Virginia Department of Historic Resources and our team, especially Shannon Doherty, who took the meticulous task of researching and writing the updated marker text. It's no small feat, and the result speaks for itself. I also want to recognize with sincere appreciation the Grayson family, who generously gifted Salubria to Historic Germanna in 2000. Their trust in us to preserve and steward the remarkable place has made everything we do here possible. And just a little diversion, I'll make the point, Bud just told so many wonderful stories about Salubria, and I can tell you that that's only a small part of the picture. In 25 more years, we're going to enter the 4th century that Salubria has been here. And it's been lovingly cared for by many families. And it's also, it's really an icon. We tend to think about sort of the people that had money or influence or power, but really this is the center of the community. And as you look here, this is something for us to hold, to learn from, and to preserve for future generations so that they have the same opportunity. And as we look to Salubria's future, I want to take a moment to honor the memory of Lita Shurquest and her husband Dick, who lovingly cared for this site for many years. Lita wasn't just a steward, she was part of Salubria. She grew up here, raised her family here, and devoted decades of her life to preserving and sharing the stories of the home. I had the privilege of knowing Lita, and her love for this place ran deep. She carries its stories with warm humor and conviction. Her passing in early 2024 was a loss felt by all who knew her, but her legacy continues in the spirit of this home and the work we carry forward. As a Germanna ascendant, that's how I ended up being attracted to the Germanna organization. I feel a personal connection to this work. Salubria is not just a historic structure, it's part of the Germanna story. It's a place of memory, meaning, and community, and that's for many, many communities. We're proud of the direction Historic Germanna is heading, committed to being responsible stewards of our historic and natural resources, active partners in our community, and champions of education, archaeology, and preservation. And we're excited for what's to come. I hope you'll stay engaged, attend our events, bring your friends, spread the word, and yes, scan the QR code and help us keep the monument going. Thank you again for being here today and for helping ensure that Salubria continues to stand proud for this community and for generations to come. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to all of our esteemed speakers today. This has been a wonderful event, and I'm grateful to Mother Nature for not raining out yet another of my events. So shout out. Thank you to everybody who's come here, all of our partner organizations, our neighbors, our elected officials. We couldn't do any of our work without you, our supporters, our volunteers. We're so grateful to you. And again, I'm, not to keep you guys here a little bit longer, but since I started here over 2 years ago, I've been drawn to Salubria and its stories and its people, and the power that it holds in telling these stories and becoming a community space. And I'm just, again, it's really hard to believe we're here and we have a sign, and that's the first step on our journey. And I'm so glad that you guys are part of this big first step.